Hello there. Are you a people pleaser? Do you put others first while sacrificing your own needs and desires? Well, if you are not alone. And today we are going to talk about how you can overcome people pleasing. Hi, my name is Katie Hunt and it's supposed to be anonymous. Hi, I'm Katie and I am a recovering people pleaser. And it's been a long journey. And it's really easy to go back into it and to relapse into people pleasing, especially when things are hard and especially when I'm exhausted. So I'm really excited to be here with you today to give you some advice and some hope for your future in terms of people pleasing, so that maybe people pleasing doesn't have to rule your life and you can actually be comfortable with saying no and not doing what other people want. So I think if you're listening to this, I think you can definitely agree with a lot of the things that I'm going to say, but I am very curious as to see how you feel about this. So if you have a people-pleasing story that you were able to overcome in the moment, I would love to hear from you on how you actually overcome people-pleasing, because it's not a science. I mean, maybe it is, but it's not in my mind. It is an art form, and it is about overcoming trauma, and it is about overcoming your love needs and your feelings of worth. And we will get into that a little bit here, but it really isn't just a you problem. This is a very typical response to a lot of people who grew up in households with maybe parents or another family member that you really needed to watch very closely if you couldn't really anticipate their feelings or anything like that. It was a little bit scary to be around them. So you had to overcompensate and make them happy just so that you could either receive love or that you can just avoid pain by not making them mad. So I think we all have stories like that if you're listening to this, and I would love to hear how you have overcome it as well. So today I thought we would just talk about a couple things that have really helped me to overcome people pleasing and are some things that I really help my clients to go through as well. And I want to actually just start off with a story, a very, very quick story. This just happened this morning. So as a business owner, I'm always getting sucked into trainings because I love training. I love learning. I love exploring. But I have gotten so exhausted by all of these people promising all of these things and selling all of these courses and hosting all of these webinars. And it's tiring, man, because it's really hard to sift through all of the stuff. So I've been trying to put up better boundaries around this. And what I found myself actually doing was, even if I was interested in these people, I would say no. Sorry, I'm getting off of track here. You don't care about that part. The thing that I wanted to tell you is I was laying in bed one night and this advertisement came up for this free training, and it really spoke to me. I mean, they really, really hooked me. And because I had been trying to be more mindful of my time on these free webinars that most of the time don't give you any helpful information, I was very surprised that I was hooked in. And so I decided to attend it from more of a curiosity standpoint. And they got me on the phone with a fake promise that they actually didn't fulfill at all. And in that conversation, they were using the traditional sales tactics, right? They're asking you open-ended questions so you can't say yes or no. And I felt really backed into a corner, which is their point, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make the sale. So they back you into a corner. And what I found myself thinking was I was starting to panic within me, but I didn't want to be rude and just say, I gotta go and hang up. And I also didn't want them to yell at me, because in the past when I have said no, people have been mad that I've wasted their time and they say something rude as they hang up. And I also, I knew that he got me because I was telling him this information, which would make me a great candidate. And it's so easy for them to say, well, you know what? You're not going to get the results that you want because you won't commit today. And I hate all of those tactics because they make you feel really gross. And as a people pleaser, it makes you feel shame. It fills you up with that shame, and it fills you up with those old feelings of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. And that is totally my wound, is that I'm not enough and I'm not doing enough. And so when I was sitting in that conversation, I was so disappointed in myself, if I can be honest with you. I was so disappointed that after all of this work, after all of this knowledge I have within myself, that being in a sales conversation like this, where I actually have the power because I've got the money, I felt no power at all. And it was so easy for me to hand over the power to a complete stranger just because they're really good at sales, or they have this thing that I could potentially want or could potentially make my life easier or not, but they are saying that it is. And so I was just sitting there and I was so disappointed in myself for having these thoughts of like, how do I get off this call? And am I just going to end up saying yes because I don't know how to say no? And I want you to just sit back. And that was a really high stakes situation because it was like looking at a $3,000 investment. So I want you to sit back for a moment and just ask yourself if you have ever said yes by default instead of saying no, just because you didn't know how to say no. And how many times you've ended up purchasing something or doing something because you didn't know how to say no. And you were uncomfortable in it. Because sometimes the people pleasing can come from somebody that you don't even know. And yet for some reason, you're trying to please this other person who you've never met. You don't even know who they are. They could be the best person or the worst. You would have no idea. And I think that's where we get frustrated, isn't it? We also get frustrated when our loved ones, we keep having to say yes to our loved ones, or we feel like we can't say no because, our mom would need us, or our sister is overwhelmed, and we have all sorts of excuses. So we say yes to things instead of the empowered no because we feel bad about it. So I'm curious, I would love to hear from you. What are some examples of you saying yes when you shouldn't have said yes? And I want to also reiterate at this point that there is no such thing as a should. You didn't make any mistakes by saying yes in the long run, because it all helps you to learn and you get something from everything you've been through. But I can understand from like a logical perspective how frustrating it can seem looking back at these experiences. So we're going to talk about why it's actually the best thing for you to do to say no, and how you can actually say no without feeling guilty. So I hope that sounds good to you. If it feels good to you and you're excited, I want you to say yes, even though you think I can't hear you, I can feel you. And the more that you interact with me as you go and as you listen to this, the more that this will sink in. So what if I said to you, you think probably in your mind that being a people pleaser makes you a really great person because you're so selfless. Here is the truth. I need you to realize that being a people pleaser is actually not at all about being selfless. It's actually highly manipulative. And I don't want you to feel shameful, and I don't want you to feel angry or sad. You're allowed to feel those things, but I don't want you to go too far down there because it's not your fault that you're a people pleaser. But what makes it a manipulation is it's a way for you to get love that you are missing within yourself, that you're craving, by making others happy and by suppressing how you actually feel. So with why I say it's manipulative, there's also an energetic component here. So when you think about it, you say yes, your energy says no. You begrudgingly do the thing, or you go to the place that you don't want to go to or do. And you, on some level, that person can feel that you don't want to be there. And your body is also saying, this is wrong. This is not what we need. And your mind is saying, I cannot believe that I am here right now. I don't want to freaking be here. And your heart is saying, this person made me do something that I didn't want to do. Those aren't actually things that your heart would say. But, right, your heart kind of feels a little bit broken and you feel a little bit subdued. You feel a little bit betrayed by yourself, and you might be beating yourself up for going against what you wanted to do. So that does not serve anybody, not even the person who you are people pleasing to. Because let me ask you this. Let's think of in terms of somebody who actually loves you. Would that person be happy for you to do something that you didn't want to do? In other words, let me tell you another quick story. Like I said, I've been a people pleaser my whole life, and there will be times where I will have plans with a friend and I will not want to go because I am exhausted and I've had a hard time and I want to cancel, but oh my God, I don't want her to think that I don't like her and I don't want to think that I'm a bad person. So you make up all of these things. You spend all day working yourself up about canceling these plans. You think about some excuses that you could tell this person so that it could soften the blow, instead of just being honest and dropping into your heart. So when I was very cognizant of these people pleasing, and every single time I do this, I am always shocked by the grace that it receives. I say to the person, hey, I'm so sorry to do this because I was really excited about getting together, but I have had a week from hell. And I don't think it's best for me to hang out with you today. I would love to get together again. Please let me know some dates next week that work really great for you. Again, I miss you so much. I'm so sorry, or whatever. Depends how close you are with the person. Then you sit there and you wait for the reply and you're freaking out and you're like, they're going to hate me. We're never going to talk again. They're going to be so angry. And then they respond and they go, no problem. Rest up. Love you. And then your brain goes either, oh my God, she's actually so mad at me. I want to make her feel better about this. And you try to overcompensate. But most of the time, you're relieved because they took it way better than you made it up to be in your head. And I am always blown away by that response when I get it. And of course, somebody who loves you and respects you and has their own healthy boundaries is always going to understand, even if they're a little bit annoyed within themselves, like, oh, I was really looking forward to that steak dinner. They're not going to outwardly rage at you. And if they do, it's either not about that or it's not about you. But of course, that person that I had to cancel on met me with grace, because that's how I treat other people. And if the person did not meet me with grace, it would probably change our relationship forever. And I wouldn't want to be friends with a person who did that to me anyways. But still, we feel this need and this desire to make other people comfortable by putting ourselves out. So I understand that that is an absolute irrational fear that you know. And I understand that it sometimes just seems like the path of least resistance. But let me ask you another question. Would you rather be uncomfortable or resentful? Would you rather be uncomfortable or resentful? Because resentment creates illness in the body. Resentment is toxic. Discomfort is what has led you here to this point, because discomfort can make you turn red. It can make you feel gross and want to rip your skin off. But in the long run, discomfort fades, and being uncomfortable, it gets a little easier over time. But resentment sticks around and it morphs and it turns into other things. So if you are to continue to people please and to do what you think that your friends and family want you to do, you may be making that person happy because you're a yes man, yes woman, yes they, non-binary person. You are also creating resentment in yourself for that relationship, which will come out in some form or another. It could come out in 5 minutes. It could come out in 5 years, and it'll be ugly and it'll be snappy. Or it could cause some damage in your body. Who wants to carry around all that resentment? It is heavy. Okay? So as much as you want to continue to make others happy, I need you to remember that question. Every single time you have a decision to make, every single time you're thinking about going against your intuition or what your body is desiring, and you're about to people please, you're about to relapse, I want you to ask yourself, do I want to be resentful or do I want to be uncomfortable? Would I rather be resentful or a little uncomfortable? And it will get easier over time. Because let me also help you to understand this. There are so many different types of people out here. There are people who don't give a shit about other people. There are people who care so much about other people. There are people in between. There are people who care about their certain people, and there are people who care about a lot of people. You can decide the type of person that you want to be and know that there is always a right space for you. Know that you can find your own little potion that will make you the most happy. Maybe you need to only give to people who give to you. Maybe that's the only people-pleasing adjustment you have to make. But what would you need to do in order to be uncomfortable over resentful? Probably say no. Probably honor how you actually feel above what your head is saying. Probably getting things in later. Probably not being so available for your friends and family who drain you emotionally. And those things are hard, but over time, people will adjust to your boundaries. They may have a fuss at first, but over time, you can continuously train people and they're not going to come to you in the same way. And that might strike some fear into you because as a people pleaser, you were the one who made everybody else feel better. But you don't have to be. You can give your value by just being yourself. You don't have to go to the extreme. And just because you're not a people pleaser anymore doesn't mean that you have to be a jerk. That's definitely not the opposite of people pleasing. You just need to understand where it is that your boundaries lie and what you are comfortable with living. Are you comfortable with the amount that your family needs you? Are you comfortable with the deadlines that your boss has given you? Are you comfortable with the amount of times that your best friend calls you and doesn't ask you how you are and just vents to you and then hangs up? I want you to first reflect and understand where it is that you feel like you are being stepped on. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself because to get out of it, you will subconsciously begin to edit yourself and not include things just because you know that they're going to be hard to deal with. Okay, but we're not going to do that. Okay, we're starting this new chapter. We're feeling great. We are letting go of the people pleasing. Okay? So the question is that you need to carry with you at all times. This is a statement, sorry, not a question. I would rather be uncomfortable than resentful. It's not okay to assume that others are unable to hear your truth. I once had a career coach and we were talking about, I had horrible boundary issues and this was at the height of my people-pleasing journey. And I told him about, some friends that I had that, just did not fill me up. And I was people's puke bucket. That's what we called it, is that people would just vomit all of their stuff onto me and then just leave. And he had me recite to myself, more than a bucket. I'm so much more than a bucket, which sounds really funny. But when you're on the phone with people or when people are throwing their stuff or their tasks or their resentment and their guilt and their shame at you, when they're trying to manipulate you because they know that you are a people pleaser, recite to yourself again, like, I'm so much more than a bucket. I am so much more than somebody's trash bucket. And I'm not saying these things to be harsh, but these were the harsh reality checks that I really needed to understand, was that being a people pleaser didn't make me a superhero. It made me manipulative. And this is something that is going to blow your skirt off, because this is what he said to me. I was telling him about how I'm scared to just be honest with people because I think that they can't handle it, because I would hurt their feelings, or that we wouldn't be able to be friends again. And I don't want to have these conversations because they're really awkward. And he said to me, he looked me straight in the face, and he said, "How ignorant of you to assume that your loved ones are unable to hear your truth." And I was gobsmacked, obviously, because how dare you? But he was right. And that it is so unfair of me to have made the assumption that those who actually love me, or those that I needed to set boundaries with at work, would be unable to receive my truth and feedback. I am so willing to take feedback and truth from others because I'm a people pleaser, but that I know that it's so painful that I don't want to give it to another person is a whole projection. It's not based in reality. So I understand that some relationships are not great, and that sometimes you have a hard time setting boundaries with your boss or your coworkers, and sometimes people do retaliate. But I do want you to really be real with yourself here and understand where those people are in your life and get really creative about how you can set boundaries. For example, if you have a friend who you don't think, who will respond negatively when you politely set boundaries, and you can say them in loving ways. But if you have a friend who doesn't respect your boundaries, is that really the friend that you want to have around you? Or is it a trauma bond that you're afraid to let go of? Have you been friends with someone since you're 5? And is that the only reason you guys are still friends? And I'm not saying to break up with these friends overnight. You might need some time. But really begin to understand these friendships for what they are. Look at them straight in the face and understand who it is that you're actually friends with and how your needs will be met by them in the ways that you need. Be reasonable, obviously. If your boss doesn't respect your boundaries, is there another way to insert the boundaries? Is there another way to reassess that conversation? Is it by working a little bit with your HR department on the right wording from even a confidential space when you don't want to rat them out? I understand that. But is there a coach, or is there somebody that works in the company that can help you formulate a better sentence so that you can go back to your boss and say, I would actually like to reassess and address these boundaries or these deadlines that I tried to discuss with you the other day and were not well received. And here are some of the things that I think would be better, and bring them solutions. Is there a person that can help you have a better conversation at work? If it's with a coworker, is there an opportunity for you to talk to some sort of boss or colleague where you guys could formulate a game plan to talk to a colleague about these boundaries? And is it just within yourself? Or is it based in reality at all? When you decide to not respond to emails past 5 o'clock, when you have at least a 24-hour turnaround period, or when you decide that you aren't going to drop everything to work overtime, what would happen in real terms if you actually put yourself and your needs, not even first, but you just took them seriously and you listened to them? What would actually happen if you said no at work or in your relationships or to total strangers? What would actually happen? Because chances are nothing bad. So there's so much more that I can go in on this topic, and I think that I probably will create a ton more tools. I want to create a meditation for this, and I want to dive into boundaries a little bit more, but you've already been listening to this for almost 25 minutes, so I want to be very mindful of your time and know that I can ramble on. So let's just talk about a couple things that you can implement today that will help you overcome people pleasing. Okay, number 1, we have beaten this to a pulp. Decide that you'd rather be uncomfortable than resentful. Choose the discomfort every single time, because guess what? You are so cheeky, and you will say, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't actually do that. I'm not available for that opportunity. Let me know about it next time. My schedule won't allow that. or just no. And then you will go home and you'll settle in on the couch with your glass of wine and your popcorn and your puppy. And you'll feel so good that you canceled your plans because your soul is just being served in this moment. And you will feel so happy that you did it for that little bit of discomfort. And you'll say, guess what? It's actually not so bad. I'm actually great at this. And I'll do it again. And you will. Also, the second one is to remember your worth, okay, for the love of God. Your worth, your worthiness as a human being is not monitored by what you can do for other people. You're worthy because you exist. Your time is worth something. Your energy and your feelings are worth something. And they are all important and they matter. At the very least, they matter to you because you're living your life. If you're having trouble with worthiness, I want you to book in for a call with me because we will get you help on that worthiness right away. And then we can also talk about, if you want, some ways that I can really help you with that worthiness because you do not have time to not understand your worth as a human and to be constantly comparing yourself to others so that you can feel valuable. And that's what people pleasing is your lack of self-worth, and you're trying to find it in another person. You're trying to get validation from another person being grateful that you helped them or that you were able to do something for them. And just recognizing that that's just all that it is about. Okay? You are worthy. And your exercise every single day may not be about how to not be a people pleaser, but knowing your worth and practicing that. The third thing is to actually begin to understand where this stems from. This is a journey. And I'm going to give you a spoiler. It's your inner child. Your inner child is wounded. Your inner child learned that this was a great way to survive as a sensitive person in the world for a multitude of reasons. It might be because you knew how painful everything was and you didn't want others to hurt. It could be to prevent yourself from being abused emotionally, mentally, physically. Or it could just be because that's the only way that you received love is if you were doing things from other people. So if you do want to dive in and begin to heal and reconnect with that inner child, I will link a meditation below so that you can begin to reconnect with your inner child. And there's actually this really beautiful part that I channeled where you reintegrate with all these different versions of yourself. And you basically come into empowerment by visiting and seeing and infusing all of these different versions of yourself into you now. So that is a free meditation and I will link that below. And then the fourth thing is to set your boundaries before you feel ready. Set it right now. What is it that you don't want to do? What is something that you are begrudgingly doing that you don't want to do? What is it? First thing that comes to your head. Okay, now, what is a boundary that you could set there? Not easy, but what is the boundary that needs to be set? First thing that comes to your mind. I need you to call them right now and make this boundary. Set this boundary right this second because there's never going to be a great time for you to set boundaries. Setting boundaries is so easy when we're feeling confident, we're feeling ourselves, we're looking good. But when we're feeling stressed is when we go back into our people pleasing the most because it is like an addiction. It is your programming. So that is what you default to when you don't have your defenses up. So do not start to say that I only set boundaries when I'm feeling good because you don't need as many boundaries when you're feeling great because the boundaries just come naturally. You need to be more intentional about the boundaries when you are feeling bad. So set them now before they get worse and they are like, oh my God, I need to set this boundary. Set it before you're ready. You set it and you forget it. So, one last thing that I will say before we let this go for today. And like I said, I want to help you with this. So please reach out to me. Let me know what you want help with around people pleasing because this is like This could be an entire career, talking about people pleasing, talking about my experience with it, talking about the ways to overcome it. So if you have specific questions or things that you want me to flesh out a little bit more from this ramble, I want you to let me know. Like, actually send me an email or contact me on Instagram or something like that at Katie Hunt Co. And then you can email me at info@katiehunt.ca, and someone will get back to you for sure. And we will hopefully be able to put that piece of content together for you. But I really want to understand what it is specifically that you're struggling with. But here's the thing that I wanted to say. When you are looking at people pleasing, and this is actually a hack for anything you want to heal, anything you want to get in your life, anything you want to overcome, it's actually not about what you think it's about. Your healing with people pleasing isn't about, okay, the practical steps to not being a people pleaser. The people pleasing is a symptom. It's a way for that. It's a way for the root to be expressed in your physical world. But your healing doesn't start outside, right? It doesn't start at the people pleasing, because the people pleasing isn't the root. The root is your lack of self-worth and your need for love, which I'm not hating on, because we all have that. We all have those wounds. They express themselves differently. But as a people pleaser, I feel it is my duty to call you out. Lovingly, of course. So it's not about not being a people pleaser. It's about taking your healing and putting it at the root, which is where this stems from, your inner child wounding. The root of this is your worth and your love wound, your core wound. So doing inner child healing work is going to help you, even if it doesn't seem directly related to people pleasing. Do the inner child healing so that you can work at the root, and it will just naturally flow out. And the people pleasing is like the outward action to support the inside work. Does that make sense? So from the inside, you're working on your worthiness. You are doing your inner child healing. And then in the outside, you are containing that space and creating a sacred space, a healing container around you by setting boundaries in the outside world as well. Okay? So I hope that helps. I hope that helps to sift out a lot of the noise. And if you want to dive deep into this healing, let go of the energy sucker that is people pleasing, I want you to book in for a complimentary coaching call with myself. I have been doing this for a while now. I have overcome a lot of bullshit in my life, and I am now blessed to help other women step into their power by letting go a lot of this kind of stuff like people pleasing. And the tools that we use here are unlike anything else you can find. It is completely customized to you, and it is a combination of spiritual and practical or coaching tools that are completely practical for your life. Okay? So we'll get clarity on how you can overcome this root block. And if the mood is right, like I said, we can discuss options for us working together at the end of the call. So it's absolutely free. I want you to book in. The link is right below this. And I am sending you so much love on this journey. I'm so grateful to be here with you and to be just a small part of this for you, because you are doing such important work for yourself. You are taking the time to actually overcome this thing instead of just doing what everybody else is doing. So congratulations to you. You're the shit, and I love you.